Now we shall discuss about the politics in the city. As we were discussing about the development of the city and industrialization process in example of London, we were actually focusing how did the actual development happen. What are the fundamental principles or what are the fundamental stages that the city of London has crossed across. So now moving on our attention towards the political side, how did the people acquire the knowledge of politics, or how did the people come together to achieve something? That's what we are going to highlight in this particular segment here. Now, looking at the issue in 1886 in winter, the London poor has been exposed in a riot. They were being completely exploded because of the starvation, because of the lack of food, bread. They were suffering a lot. Many of the millions of the London poor who got migrated from various corners towards London, as in the previous chapter, we have discussed that London has been a place of attraction towards the people. 1 out of every 9 from England and in Wales would wish and dream to come and stay in London, because though London doesn't have any large factories to give exploded opportunities for them, but the small opportunities, small businesses which have provided opportunities for millions of people made London the place of attraction for the people to come in. But because of the bad weather condition, bad harvesting condition, the people were not able to succeed during that period, that is in 1886, during the winter period, when the winter was in severe condition, where it was in the extreme cold climatic conditions. People out of starvation, out of hunger, could not sustain. They came outside as a rally. So what happened? So the London people who were hungry, nearly 10,000 people did a rally from Deptford to London. So the first time in the history of the city, London, all people, especially the working class people, are traveling or walking on a special demand, requesting the government to do certain things to end up this starvation for them. So in their process of ending up the starvation, or an attempt to make the government to recognize their point of view that they are being struggling, they are being facing hard time from the bad weather conditions. So they want to raise their voices very clearly. All have come collectively, nearly 10,000 people gathering during that time. 10,000 people would be a very large number. So 10,000 people gathered and they did a rally, who are very dedicated crowd, because they are suffering seriously, and it's a realistic one. It's not the showcased political rallies what we see today, which are being paid rallies as most of the cases. But during those times, they were truly genuine workers who were thrown out of their jobs because of the implementation of the technology, because of the lack of opportunities, whatever may be the reason, these people are suffering a lot. So from Deptford to London, they did a rally. Looking at this, alarming to the shopkeepers, because as we discussed in the previous part that most of the city of London is having small merchants who are having their own shops. So all the shops were shut down until the police comes and take the necessary action to stop the rally. So again the same rally has been repeated in 1887, a year later, in which again more number of people gathered and they also did a rally in the similar manner which was being done in 1886. But this time the police, which are failed in the first phase to arrest or to stop the rally, this time they planned ahead and they came with a heavy force and army, and they brutally suppressed the rally. So their brutal step has been recognized in the history. It has been marked as the Bloody Sunday of November in 1887, where the situation was completely out of control and out and right in the control of the army, which means that people could not do anything. They were beaten up, they were thrown away into the houses, they were pushed away from the rallies. All these things made them to declare that it is a bloody Sunday. Many of them got hurt. The entire street where they were traveling was filled with blood, because the people were beaten up like that, and many people were running here and there. In order to disperse the people, the police started to use various kinds of methods to make the people to get terrorize so that they would not again further come up towards this extent to organize one more rallies. But this inspiration and this suppression brought it a wave back again, because when we suppress something, it comes up in a very large speed back again. So that's how it happened. When this suppression happened, immediately 2 years later, all the workers in all the factories of London went on a strike for 12-day strike, with a large masses doing the rallies across the streets without having a single pickpocket or without troubling any shopkeeper. They were all going in a peaceful manner, went on for 12 days strike, shutting down every business whatever is going on in London. This was the first major strike which was organized in the city of London as well as in the country of Great Britain, which they demanded that the trade unions have to be recognized. If the trade unions are not recognized, obviously the workers would not have any right to fight against the managements or to ask for their rights. Whenever there is a system failure or whenever there is a trouble for them coming up, they would need somebody to support them, because workers are a weak community during that period. So all the workers joined together and they want their own trade union to be recognized in all the industries wherever they have, small or large, in order to protect the interest of the working community people. So that's how the strike made historical significance. And then moving on to the understanding of the city of London, most of the historians describe this one as, yes, we have large population gathered in London because of various opportunities which are coming or which are offered by London. But the same way, the other side of the coin is described as, when a city is most populous, automatically you have a threat like the strikes or like indulging into illegal activities. As we already discussed, many of the people are got involved into the criminal activities. So this criminality, all these things will pop up only when you have large population and lack of opportunities. Yes, city may always provide a chance for you to get a better opportunity. At the same time, there will be a threat always behind the opportunity. So we should be very cautious when we are living in a large city. Or the dynamic nature of the city itself is that when we have large population, there are certain good aspects, but at the same time the other side of the coin is that there are certain aspects which we need to be careful. If not, that may turn into the anti-social elements and they start to affect the society. So the politics in city was initially got struck with the severe winter session in 1886, when the London poor, exploded of riots, came out in order to express their solidarity and sadness because of the situation and request the government to do something. But looking at the growing strength and the huge mass coming together, the shopkeepers all will shut down their shops and requested the police to take the necessary action. But though they failed in 1886, in 1887, when the situation came up again, when the rally was organized, then the police were well prepared. They came up with a huge army and they suppressed the entire revolt, beating the people, hitting the people and destroying the people mercilessly. And that is the reason why it has been termed as a Bloody Sunday of November in 1887. So now, after this, many would think that once it was suppressed brutally, automatically the people would not try to attempt these kind of things. But when we suppress something, it comes back to us in a very large manner. That's what we have learned from history. Here, once again it is repeated here. Let us see here. 2 years later, a 12-day strike was organized, where most of the historians were astonished. Though we know that in London we have 20,000 criminals recognized legally, where we know that these all are criminals, where we know that they indulge in criminal activity. Even though they are there, out of this crowd, none of them have done a pickpocketing or indulging in any other activity, gathered, did a very large strike, requesting or asking or appealing to recognize the unions. The trade unions have to be legalized. later the large masses, conclusion of the historians is that city population would always bring a large opportunities. At the same time, we will be possessing a certain amount of threat. That's what we have seen in the example of London as well as in the example of Paris. Now, moving on to the city in the colonial India. As we all know that India has been the colony of the Britishers, popularly known as classical colony. So the one of the major cities, or the let us move on saying that the first city which developed in India was Bombay. So prior to this, what we have discussed till now, that the city of London, the first well advanced, well developed so called city, started with the term of London. Now let us move on our attention towards the Indian first city. But prior to this, comparative study between the growth of these cities in the west and in the east. So the city growth was in contrast with each other. In the west, we have a rapid growth. When it compares to the east, the growth was very less. It was only in the later part of the 19th century the cities started to emerge very much in India. Whereas in the west, we have the cities coming up as mushrooms from the early part of the 19th century. Now, when it comes to the population of India, it was only around 11% of them who used to live in cities in India. That means that most of the population in India were restricting themselves to stay in the rural areas or in the semi-rural areas, but not into the urban areas. Most of the people, whomever we term them as they stay in cities, they used to stay in the cities like the presidency cities, the cities which are places where the presidencies used to stay. Because we have in the olden time the Madras presidency, the Bombay presidency, these presidencies used to stay, and from there only one city used to be developed. The place where most of the offices of the government offices, the cities where they have the port facilities, the cities where they have the industries, the cities where they have the homes and offices of the officials, and the army camps, the educational institutions, the hospitals, all these things. Let us apply this to any one of the city, either the Mumbai or Chennai. So let us take the major ports. Yes, in Mumbai we have a major port, in Chennai also we have a port. Warehouses, yes, we have storehouses in Mumbai as well as in Chennai. Homes of the officials, yes, when we have the offices, obviously homes will be there. Army camps, yes, we have army camps in Mumbai or in the Bombay or in Madras or in Chennai. And we also have world famous or the St. Loyola colleges, Stella colleges in Mumbai and in Chennai. During that time they were established. And then we also have the hospitals which were established during that period. We also have many schools which were established by the Britishers. So that's how when we say that a city, a presidency city is a city which was under the presidency during that time, where India has been totally divided into some 6 to 12 presidencies. So these presidencies, cities were very famous, in which we have the port facilities. Very few have this facility. One is Bombay, the other is Madras, while the third one is Kolkata or Calcutta. These three cities are very famous, and these three only will be termed as presidency cities. So as we discussed just now, the characteristics, the cities which have the characteristics are the facilities like major ports, good transport system from the interior to the external places to connect the port areas, then warehouses, the store places, then the homes and offices of the officials. We also have the army camps, then the hospitals, educational institutions. All these things together have given up for the growth of the presidency cities, that is Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. Let us now, in this lesson we shall focus on the development of Bombay. Bombay, the premier city. Bombay is the first city in India where to be termed as a city. The city did not develop so rapidly or so fast as London got developed. The city got its inception only in 1872, wherein 1840s, 1850s, one or two the other industries have been established, but not in a very large scale. 6.45 lakh was the population in 1872, while in 1941 the population went up to 15 lakhs. So this shows that the city slowly started to get attraction from the people. People are being attracted means there is a possibility of opportunity. And as we discussed earlier, in London also the population has been expanded to 4-fold times, from 1 million to 4 million. So that's how a city can be termed. A city is a place where you find opportunity for yourself. You may have a chance to get an opportunity. The possibilities are more in the cities. So Mumbai is the first premier city in India during the presidential rule or the presidential cities. Why do we call these presidential cities or presidency cities? Because these are the presidencies. Britishers divided India into presidency parts. That's how we call them as presidency cities. It's not the presidential rule what we term in the modern day of independent Republic India. It's not that. It is completely different from that time. There, how do we have states today? In the same manner, they have divided British India into different presidencies. That's how we got the presidency cities. So in this, now we shall move on to see how did vertically and horizontally the growth of Mumbai has occurred in detail. As we were progressing towards the understanding of the growth of Bombay, now we shall finalize about how did the prime city, how did Bombay become the prime city of India. As we all know, prime city is something which is a very, very important one. Generally, we have India Prime Minister, the most important person in the Indian context, the most powerful person according to the Indian Constitution is the Prime Minister. In the same way, the term prime has some special importance. So the prime city in India, Bombay. How did Bombay become the prime city of India? That is the fundamental question before us. So in order to establish the facts and to know actually what happened to make Bombay to be the most attention grasping center during that time. Actually, Bombay was not part of the British India domain at all. Bombay consists of 7 island group together, and Bombay was initially occupied by Portuguese people. So in the first part of the lesson, we shall now understand that Bombay was not at all occupied prior to this by anybody else. Bombay was occupied by the Portuguese. Portuguese later on, how did Britain establish their headquarters in Bombay? How did Bombay become the prime city in British India if Portuguese are the people who occupied the city first with having establishing their authority? You may generally assume that maybe Britishers and Portuguese people may had a war which resulted in the defeat of the Portuguese, and with that the Britain might have occupied the Bombay. No, the story was different in this case. The story was Britain or the British did not do any war to occupy Bombay, or neither did any provoking things to attack the local kings to occupy that one and later defeating the local kings and occupying the place. It was a gift to the king. Yes, you heard it right. It was a gift to the king because king married the queen. What is a special point in this? King obviously marries a queen. Yes, the point is British King Charles II got married to Portuguese princess. You got the point? British King Charles II got married to Portuguese princess. In return of this marital bond, they have given as a gift the authority and the administrative rules to the Britain. So this marriage has brought the change of authority, shifting from Portuguese control to the British control. So now the ruling authority of Bombay has been got transformed from the Portuguese people to the Britishers. That's how in 1661 without any war, without any aggression, without fighting any battles, Britishers were able to establish their control over the Bombay. After establishing their control, as soon as the news spread to the English East India Company, immediately the English East India Company shifted its centers trading from Surat to West Port of Bombay. So that's how the main focus towards Bombay has come up. And later on, initially Bombay was the place where the cotton which we get from Gujarat has been exported. It has been a major outlet from where we get cotton. Gujarat we get cotton. Surat was a place where initially East India Company used to collect the cotton and export it. After having a wide Arabian Sea opening here in Mumbai or in the Bombay, so as the control has gone to the Britishers, so they would felt might be that it would be a better place to do this facilities and all, and port area was good connectivity, nice large port available for them, good place to establish. So all these things made them to shift from the Surat to the West Port of Bombay. From there they used to do exporting the product initially. But later on, because of the massive facilities available, good connectivity from the port to the interior and from the interior to the port, that made Mumbai or the Bombay to be the main place to export and import the raw products, especially the raw cotton and opium. With the getting up of the opium trade into India, Mumbai became one of the most important administrative centers for the Britishers. As I told you before also, opium was something which is very, very costly, and the money which they got on opium was being used to balance their deficit amounts wherever they are doing trade with the other countries at very loss in amount, or it's like an extra surplus amount what they are getting from India. So with that extra surplus amount what they are getting in India, the focus was in Bombay. So obviously Bombay became the main administrative center for the Britishers, and it became, and we also can travel from Bombay directly to Britain, where we through via this Atlantic Ocean, and all these ways has given a chance for Bombay to establish herself as a prime city. So later on, after getting established as the prime city, slowly one after the other the major industries started to step in, and by the end of the 19th century it became to be the major industrial center in the entire British Indian territory. So that's the story of Bombay, the introduction of Bombay. Why did Bombay become the premier city? Bombay was actually occupied by Portuguese people. Portuguese did not got defeated in the hands of Britishers, nor they were being attacked by anybody else. In return to the marriage of Portuguese princess with the King of Britain, Charles II, as a marital agreement, a bond, as a gift, it was being given the administrative rights to the Britain people. As soon as the news spread for them, the English East India Company immediately shifted her offices from Surat towards West Port of Bombay. That's how the Britishers were able to establish their control in the matter of administration, in the matter of the entire political as well as the geographical authorities were established, which gave a chance for them to groom Bombay. Initially, Bombay was also a normal city where the population was not so high. But after these changes happened, the population went on growing day by day, because day by day Bombay is growing. Bombay was first an outlet center for Gujarat's cotton. Later, it was an important export and import place, business place, where raw cotton and opium was brought. Opium is something which was done by the Britishers to get the surplus amount, extra profitable amount, to compensate their losses with the other colonial countries what they were doing trade, especially with China. And later it turned to be the most important administrative center, and then a major industrial center. This is a slow rapid growth of Bombay. So let us see how is the life in Bombay, how are the workers in Bombay, what did Bombay do to its workers when London was not able to do much benefits for its workers. What did Bombay do? Let us now discuss about the working conditions. how are the opportunities available for the people? When we look at the work in the city, when it comes to Bombay, Bombay has been declared as a capital of the Bombay Presidency in 1819. After Bombay has been declared as the capital of the Bombay Presidency in 1819, then Bombay became the focus of attention of all the people. Prior to this, Bombay has been a port city. Bombay has been an outlet for the Gujarat cotton to let out. Bombay has been an import city and an export city for the raw cotton and opium till the development. After these transactions were going on, the British officials felt that it would be better to have Bombay as a capital of Bombay Presidency. That's the reason why in 1819 Bombay has been declared as the capital of Madras Presidency. This actually came with the defeat of the Maratha people, the Maratha rulers in the Anglo-Maratha War, which was in effect till that time. So once in 1813-1815, the Marathas got defeated gradually. The strength and the hold over the Bombay became weak, and Anglo people, means the English people, were successfully able to establish their control over the entire Bombay region. So later, after this, slowly the many opportunities have come up. Initially, the development was only because of the establishment of the mills. First mill was established in Bombay, that is a cotton mill, in 1854. But in a very less span, from 1854 to 1921, within a span of 70 years, 85 cotton mills were established, which was a very huge number, which we could not even find in London city. So 85 cotton mills accommodating nearly 1,46,000 workers working in that one. In this 1,46,000 workers working in the mills of Bombay are not basically from Bombay. It is only 1/4 of the people who belong to Bombay. The rest of the people all have got migrated from the nearby districts of Bombay. The nearby districts of Bombay from where the huge population crowd has flux in was Ratnagiri. The Ratnagiri district has been the major people from where the people have migrated towards Bombay. So that's how the people started to walk in towards Bombay by the ending of the 19th century. And later, let us now see what is the women percentage of work. Women were also accommodating nearly 23% in 1919 to 1926, while this was after the First World War and before the economic crisis and before the Industrial Revolution happened in a larger scale, where machinery has been taken into a large scale in the later part of the 20th century beginning. So the third decade of the 20th century, where the machines have been started to replace most of the work made by men and the human. So in 1930s, the women percentage has come down to less than 10% because the work has been replaced by the machines and men. And later on, these were the working conditions. And not only this, the special significance for Bombay comes after it has been the dominant one in the maritime trade. Any trade in relation to maritime, the first preferred place is Bombay, while railways have also been a connecting point between the north and the south, where railways also have added to bring more migrants into Bombay, as well as at the same time the famines at the Kutch, the Ran of Kutch in the upper part of western India was also given an opportunity, because when there is a severe famine there, the other possible channels where you can sit and look to get some kind of possibility to live and survive is Bombay. So that's how people started to come into Bombay. And not only this, various other factors have motivated the people. Where there is an opportunity, people started to flood in to this one. So this flooding has been a serious issue in 1898, when the epidemic disease plague has spread to many people in Bombay. So the officials have forced the people to go back to their native places because of the spread of the disease, and they were afraid because of the loss of the human population. So nearly 30,000 people are forced to leave Bombay during this 1901 period when the plague was in its extreme phase. So that's the how the work, the scenario, the opportunities of all people were in Bombay. So what about the housing condition? How did the people stay? Because the next major problem what we get is, first you need to get a job. So you need to start to move in or migrate into the city. So once you get migration from various corners into the city, city doesn't get expanded. People are coming, the population is increasing. That doesn't mean the city is going to get expanded because population is coming in, dumping in. City doesn't increase its land area horizontally, vertically, or in the length and breadth of the area. So the length and breadth of the area remains the same. The number of people inhabiting the city are increasing now. So what happened for the housing in Bombay? That we shall find out. Now, as I told you that horizontally and vertically, the length and the breadth of the city does not increase with the dumping of the population from across when the migration happens. The same problem occurred in London also. But the situation is completely different when it comes to India, especially Bombay. What happened in the Bombay context? Let us see here. Bombay was overcrowded. London was also overcrowded. In London, every Londoner used to have 155 square yards in 1840s, where it has been an average number of people staying in that land were 8 persons. When it comes to India, especially Bombay, 9.5 square yards was only left out, and even in that also we have 20 people. That's the density of people staying in that particular less land. It shows the severity of the people staying in that particular place. So the population has grown 4-fold times, larger and larger. Now the basic problem is the housing problem. Housing has become a very, very large problem for the people of Bombay after the city has acquired its industrial center brand. So with that, any plans were not there for the development of the Bombay city. So without any plan, the city has started to grow on. Houses were growing on. And even the city was being divided into 2 parts, where one is a place where the Britishers used to stay, known as a Whites colony, whereas the native Indians used to stay, known as a native colony. The north of the fort area, was occupied by the Britishers, whereas the south obviously has been occupied by the cantonments where the native Indians used to stay. And this also shows for us that during this time we had a serious discrimination of racialism. Racial pattern is not only found in the Bombay presidency but also in the rest of the 2 presidencies of Kolkata and Chennai, or like Madras presidency. Now moving on to understand what happened after this. As we have discussed the population coming up, turning like this, what is the further development that happened? So with the rapid growth, as I told you, length and breadth would not increase. The house has become scarce and water supply has become a serious concern by 1850s. Is it the case with all the Indians? No. The rich, Parsis, businessmen, Muslims used to live in spacious bungalows and the sprawlings. The spacious bungalows and the sprawlings symbolize their wealth and filthy rich nature, where their houses are very spacious. The spacious bungalows and the sprawlings were the houses of the Indians who were belonging to the communities like Parsis and Muslims. But contrast to this, 70% of the Bombay used to stay at the chawls. These chawls are built as a multi-storied buildings where they don't have proper accommodation facilities. They even don't have private toilets for every single room story. And 90% of the people, as most of the people are mill workers, would prefer to stay nearby to the mill region so that they can walk and approach to their workplace. So So that is the reason why they have established a mill village named Girijan Gaon. This Girijan Gaon is just 15 minutes away from the most famous mills in Mumbai, and this is the story of the Charles, where multi-storied buildings were built in 1860s. Is just like a replica of the tenements which we have discussed in London, and most of the tenements are owned by the people, private merchants and the private business people, where they used to give rent for more number of people, and because of the cost of rent, heavy rents, the families were forced to stay in a single roomed houses, where the single room stalls, because they can't afford to stay in a very large place. In 1901, when the statistics were taken, nearly 80% of the families were staying in these stalls of Bombay. And the astonishing fact is that daily morning we find, with the scarcity of water, one woman fighting with the other woman in the daily morning scene in Bombay Charles. But when they were fighting, even though they were fighting for water, the observers have remarked that most of the houses were kept very clean. Though there was a huge scarcity of water, the houses were maintained well cleaned. That's the astonishing fact of Bombay Charles. So that's how the housing was in the initial stages. Bombay was overcrowded when compared to London. In London you have sufficient place for the people. It doesn't mean that in India, in Bombay, we don't have sufficient place for the rich people. Yes, we have spacious bungalows and the sprawlings for them, but most of the people, nearly 70 to 90% of the people, those who are working for the mills in Bombay, used to stay in the chawls or the multi-storied buildings, where they even have to shut down their doors continuously because of the buffaloes, because of the gutters. All these things made them to be shabby, dusty places. And even then, even in the hot, humid summer, they have to close their windows and stay inside. These all are the difficulties which are faced by the common people during this period because of the lack of the proper houses, and in order to could not be able to afford the heavy rents which were stationed during that period. So these all possibilities made most of the people to stay nearby in the villages known as mill village or Girijan Gaon, which is a nearby walkable distance for 15 minutes from all by established mills, so that they do not find any difficulty in going to their mills and coming from their mills. As in the progress of discussions about the homes and the neighborhood, how did the household problems got solved in Bombay? So with the scarcity of the homes in Bombay, they became very small to the people, and we all know that most number of people, as 80% of the families are living in the chawls of Bombay, which are very small houses literally. So automatically the neighboring the streets all were used for various works. So the streets were used for various activities. Those activities can be branded like this, like for cooking the items or cooking their food, everything, day-to-day activities, washing the clothes, after washing the clothes, night time to sleep, and then to have liquor business, to do liquor, to consume liquor. And when there is any empty spot that has been spotted out in the gap of these chawls, they used to occupy that one known as akaharas. This occupation was also very high during that time by putting a small shop or putting a small any outlet where they can sell anything. As the time passed on, people started to get habituated of staying on the streets. That's what one of the famous writers, Parvati Bai Bore, remarked rightly, that she always used to see some kind of activity that is going on between the gaps of the chawls. There is a time where the leisure activities were also conducted in the gaps or the streets, where in the gaps, the chawls where the magicians used to come to perform their magics, the monkeys used to come, the monkey man used to come and put his monkey for display for the people. and it is also very scary for her to watch the Nandi bulls. The bulls which are very strongly built were brought there, and also Kathak Lakshmi. The Kathak Lakshmi is an act which was performed by a person standing off of his shirt and beating himself in order to survive him. So in order to earn his livelihood, he used to beat his body mercilessly so that people would donate some amount. So like that, there were various other activities that had been done on the streets and the nearby hoods of the neighborhoods of the chawls. So the chawls were the places where the people used to gather to discuss anything. It was not only for the time pass activities, it was not only for the leisure time, it was for the discussion of important aspects also. The important aspects like exchange of the news, any activity, any news, any incident which happened can be reported in the streets of the chawls. Then the job opportunities, where if anyone finds that any suitable opportunity for any of their people, they would immediately approach them. And the riots, if there are any riots going on, they would immediately inform to the people, because all are staying in the same chawl and most of the people are poor people. They always used to be most of the time united on any of the issues. And if you look at the caste system, as we already discussed in the previous part, that we have the racial discrimination in India during that time, in all the presidencies during the British India rule. At the same time, we have the caste and the family heads taking over the chawls rule, because for having a leadership for all the members in the chawls, we used to have one elderly person who used to be like a village headman who acts as head of the entire chawls. And most of the times, as we discussed in the previous time, the jobber, the job opportunity taker, provider in the industries, that particular person, jobber, used to be the village head person for most of the times, and he used to settle the disputes. As the time passes on, he used to settle the disputes, and the major disputes are between them in his consumption of the food, how the food production happens, what are the legal disputes of the rice and all these things, or any informal credits taken. And he also brings the information on the political developments which are happening during that time, or what he knew about something, he used to come and announce in the areas. But the astonishing fact is that the depressed classes were kept away from the chawls. Britishers kept away the native Indians kept away the lower caste people or the depressed classes, and most of the chawls were denied for the people, or chawls were denied for the depressed classes. Most of the times they used to stay on the streets or on the side of a tree, bamboo tree and all these trees, wherever there is a possibility for them, because nobody is ready to give any kind of houses for them to stay. The chawls were exemptly, openly they used to say that we were not ready to give houses for you people. And then after they are out of the chawls, so there is no other chance by laying on the streets or on the far off places of the city. So now let us first recall what happened, then I will let you know what happened for the planning of the development of Bombay city. So most of the houses were very small. So because of the size of the houses, the people were forced to perform their activities in and out of the houses. So in the streets and in the neighborhood of the houses. So activities which are performed by the people in the streets and the neighborhood places are cooking, washing, sleeping, liquor, playing games, looking at the leisure time passes like watching the magician shows, monkey shows, or people coming with the bulls, or people coming with the Kathak Lakshmi activities, performing their own activities as a medium of leisure for the people who stay in the chawls, as a medium of income for the people by coming from the outside. And it also acted as a place where exchange of the news, jobs, as well as the riots, any information from the people would be discussed in the chawls. Not only this, the caste system and the families were always headed by a elderly person known, acting like in a village. How do we have village person heading a village headman? In the same way, we have a caste groups heading their own caste members. And then the most of the times the person was a jobber. A jobber is a person who is a senior most employee in any of the factories or the industries, whose word would be the final authority to take the members into the jobs, the workers into the work. That is the reason why jobbers are given special importance and privileges in the society, and he has been taken as the family head person or the main person of the chawl of the basti. So once he takes these charges, he tries to settle the disputes in regarding to the allocation of the food, crop or any other activities, or any kind of informal credits exchanged between two members which resulted in a dispute. Then he would enter in and try to solve the dispute. And coming to the political news, the news jobber would have a more accessibility to the developments which are happening in the political scenario. So he would brief the people on what are the political developments that are on his knowledge towards the development of the city or their own bastis. Moving on to the other astonishing fact was the discrimination point of view was very high during the British India, and that can also be felt in Mumbai, where the depressed classes were not at all allowed to stay in the chawls. They were completely out of the chawls. But now moving on to the interesting fact of London got the idea of town planning with the fear of mass revolt by the people, especially the working community. But in Bombay, the scene was completely different. It was not the fear of the workers which made Bombay to plan its city. It was the fear of plague, the disease, the epidemic, which brought the idea of people of Bombay to plan strictly in order to save themselves from the dangerous disease, that is plague. So the Bombay Improvement Trust was established in 1898. This trust has been in its process to build houses for the workers. But in a promise of building the houses, they have dispersed nearly 64,000 families from their houses, and they were only able to reschedule the houses for 14,000 people, which has again resulted in a very, very dangerous disaster for the poor people to find their houses. At the same time, the rents were being stabilized by the rent laws in 1918. When the rent laws were being stabilized, that has shooted up a new problem, because most of the rich merchants and the private chawls owners took away their properties from the market for giving rent, because as the rent amount has been lowered down. Again, this gave a problem for the housing activity in the Bombay. So this process of housing activity has been a continuous and serious problem for the Bombay people whole along their journey. So it is rightly observed by the historians that when any city is developing, that automatically leads to the problem of housing and then to the supply of water. So but Bombay got its development only by reclamation. What is this reclamation? How did Bombay got its success or improvement because of this reclamation policy? Let us find it now. So now, land reclamation bill. I think for the first time we are hearing the land reclamation bill or land reclamation bill. The land reclamation bill is nothing but occupying the empty lands which were once occupied by the sea or the marshy tract regions are being rebought back into the existing land levels. So how this has been possible in Bombay? That's what we are going to discuss now, the land reclamation in Bombay. The land reclamation in Bombay has been a very drastic step which has been required during that time. Who was the father or the main person who initiated this process? The person who initiated this process was William Horby in 1784. William Horby in 1784, the then governor, initiated the process of building the Great Sea Wall. So if you build a great sea wall which is stopping the sea from further coming inside into the land region. So when a sea wall has been built, that would automatically result in the stop of the water, and the land which has been left out, which was initially been occupied by the sea, would become an empty land which will be giving extra scope to encroach into that land by the people. So as the requirement of the land increased, the British officials of during that time decided to build a great sea wall which is on demand. So now William Harvey planned to build a great seawall. So the great seawall was built under the process to claim the lost land to the sea. Simple. We can divide the word re, do it something again, claim, get it back, action. So reclamation, getting back the action of the land which has been initially was a land, but initially it was good. Later when the sea expanded, it came to this part and brought this land also under the influence of the sea. Now we are restricting the influence of the sea by building a great seawall. That's what the process of reclamation. This reclamation has proved a very positive sign towards the growth of Bombay, because the additional commercial place, it has required place because it is growing day to day basis. Private as well as the government offices, private industries all need place. So the several plans have been planned in order to get the excess land or the reclamation land from Bombay. This reclamation land is highly required because of the necessity and the growth of the demand for land. So finally, even the private owners are ready to risk their money in order to get this land inbuilt, because they need land and they need to do their business. In most of the cases, nearly all the factories has been shut down because of the lack of land and the proper facilities are not being provided. So finally, the back bay which has been built has added for Mumbai or the Bombay 22 square miles of land, which was a very huge land added, and this land has been profitably or successfully completed from 1914 to 1918 during the period of World War I in Bombay. The Bombay Port Trust has successfully completed this one. After they completed this one, they have established the 22-acre land into a Ballard Estate. The Ballard Estate is a place where today we have the Marine Drive of Bombay, which is very famous. So that's how the Bombay got its land expanded by having land reclamation walls. So this is how some cities grow, by adding the lands of the nearby suburban regions. But here Bombay, it got its own land back by pushing aside the sea. Is it really possible to push aside a sea? No. We are just stopping the flow of the water by building a great wall so that this land can be positively used for human inhabitation. That's what happened here in the land reclamation in Bombay. Land reclamation in Bombay was started by William Harvey in 1784. This man was a governor during that period of the Bombay presidency who initiated the process to build a great sea wall. His intention was to start the process of reclamation. And what is the purpose for him to go towards the ideology of building a wall there? His ideology in building a wall was he needs land for the government purpose and also for the private companies. So the private company people are ready to risk their financial amounts to get the land back or to find some land in Bombay to do their businesses. So as situations are becoming worse, the private companies are daily feeling very bad to circulate the problem of land acquisition. So that's how the need has triggered to build a great wall, that is the Back Bay in 1864, which was adding 22 square miles to Bombay geographical area. Later on, in 1914 to 1918, Bombay Port Trust has made it 22-acre Ballard Estate, which is now famous as the Marine Drive of Bombay. That's how the land reclamation in Bombay has been a proved positive advantage for the growth of Bombay, not only in the geographical aspect but also industrially, politically, and also to get financial resources dumped in towards Bombay, which obviously gave chance for the opportunities to grow much larger and larger. Mumbai is a land of dreams. How did Bombay get its city of dreams? Though we have discussed that Mumbai has been a place where it has been overcrowded, there are no proper housing facilities available, there is a problem for drinking water also, where daily morning we see people fighting with each other. So these all remarks of Mumbai has been thrown away aside when it comes to the establishment of Bombay, the city of dreams. The world of cinema and culture has entered into Bombay. That happened, many of the people call it as Mayapuri, the place where all the dreams come true, the city of dreams. Bombay is also known as the mixture or a blend of star success and ultimate reality of poor slums. It is star bungalows and slums. It is a blend of slums and star bungalows. So how did Bombay turn into such a successful film making city? Let us discover that. Let us see here. The first film was depicting that India has always had problems, especially Bombay had always problems. In 1956, and the movie from CID, where the hero's buddy song is like this: आए दिल ये है कि मुश्किल है जीना यहाँ, ज़रा हटके ज़रा बचा के, ये है मुंबई मेरी जान. It is like आए दिल है मेरा मुश्किल है जीना यहाँ, means like it is very difficult to live here practically. ज़रा हटके ज़रा बच के, to move aside, to safeguard yourself. ये है मुंबई मेरी जान. So safeguard yourself, my heart. That is a line which is saying that there are practical difficulties in Bombay in order to achieve their day-to-day works and settlements. And in the other movie like Guest House in 1959, it also says that a song saying the hearts of the people of Mumbai are small, while the roads and streets are very wide. The bungalows are very big. That's how the movies have depicted the picture of Bombay in the initial years for the development of the film industry. Now moving on to the actual development of the film industry. The first film was made in 1896 by Harishchandra Sakharam Bhatwadekar. Harishchandra Sakharam Bhatwadekar conducted a wrestling match, who shooted actually a movie on a wrestling match at the Bombay Hanging Gardens. So after shooting this movie in 1896, it became a very famous spot for the movies. Later, Dada Saheb Phalke made the first attempt to picturize a movie named as Raja Harishchandra. This was the first official movie made in Bombay and released in the Indian language in the year 1913. So from then, the movies have kicked off their way or started off on a great way ahead. In 1925, Bombay became the famous film capital of India. By 1925, it was very clear that the entire filmmaking industry started to develop in Mumbai. 50 films in 1947 proved that it has been a large growing industry, because the budget which has been spent on 50 films was rupees 756 million rupees. So this amount is not a small amount. It is not in competition with any industry, because it has gone a far ahead than all the other industries. And in 1987, this film industry is able to accommodate nearly 5,20,000 people. So the people started to get their jobs, started to understand the filmmaking industry. People started to migrate from north, east and the south. From Madras, we have many people coming towards the film industry in Bombay. We have many people coming from east, Kolkata, towards Bombay. We have many people from Lahore, the present day Pakistan, also coming from Bombay in association with the Hindi movie making industry. The famous people are Ishmant Chughai, was also part of the Hindi movie making association, and Sadat Hassan. These two are coming from Lahore region, were also part of the Hindi movie making group or Bombay cinema. So the Bombay cinema was actually the city of dreams. What we could have like a brief recap of what happened actually. It is also known as the Mayapuri, the city where all your dreams come true because of the establishment of the world of the cinema and culture. Now, in 1956, one of the movie songs of the movie CID, hero sings for himself saying to his heart and soul that "Aay ye dil hai, mushkil hai jeena yahan, zara hatke zara bachke, ye hai Bombay meri jaan." To safeguard yourself, it is very difficult to live in Bombay. That's what the meaning of these lines meant for us. And in another movie like Guest House in 1959, this also showed that there are practical difficulties in Bombay to find a house to stay there or to find any job there. And moving on to the development of the actual industry of the movies. First movie was been picturized by Harish Chandra Sakharam Bhatwadekar in 1896. He shot a movie on wrestling match, which actually turned on picturizing on Bombay High Gardens. Later on, Dada Saheb Phalke made the first attempt to picturize a movie completely in Hindi base, that is Raja Harishchandra in 1913, which started off a great way of the establishment of the Indian filmmaking industry at Bombay. With this, in 1925, the filmmaking industry was being established at Bombay and recognizing Bombay as the capital of film sector. So, film capital is Bombay from then. From then onwards, Bombay has never looked back in a category of films. So, in 1947, by the time we got independence, the budget which has been spent on making the movies was nearly 756 million, which is a very far ahead than all private sector industries which are in existence during that time. And in 1987, it is able to accommodate nearly 5,20,000 people by providing some opportunities for them. So, Ismat Chaugan and Sadat Hasan, who came from the various parts of India, also symbolizing the national integration, was also the special characteristic of Indian cinema. So, Bombay has turned to be the city of dreams. Whoever would like to wish to act in movies, to exhibit their skills of dancing, acting or any other skills, they would move on to Bombay. So, Bombay is not only the place where you find difficulties to find a house. It is the true representation of the chawls of bungalows, slum areas. At the same time, in Bombay, we have the star bungalows, so Bombay is rightly remarked as a blend of both high privileges and low amenities, high standards, low atrocities. So, high standard of star bungalows, low slum areas. So, Bombay is a distinct city. In any corner of the world, you don't find a city equal to that of Bombay. Now, cities and the development and the impact of the cities on the environment. As we all know that when we talk about a city, we are literally talking about the development of the industries and the factories. So, when an industry or a factory is established, that would automatically pressurize or at the cost of the ecology. So, that's what the main focus today's theme of understanding city and the effect on the environment. So, at the cost of the cities are established at the cost of ecology. The environment would be completely being affected diversely in all aspects. Let it be in the air pollution, let it be in the water pollution, let it be in the land getting contaminated with the different kind of chemicals. So, all these things get affected with the upgradation of a rural area into an urban area, that is literally into a city. A city may be a place where you get a number of opportunities, but at the same time it is at the cost of ecology, the imbalance which is created in the nature. Naturally we have certain special effects, but that all will be destroyed with the influence of the development so-called cities. Many factories would be established which would be resulting in the waste, more in the waste, dust, then pollutions, all kinds of pollutions, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution. Noise has been a serious concern for the many people in the cities. So, many waste particles you find in the city because of the development. Most of the land gets polluted, water gets polluted and air also gets polluted. Noise It's been serious concern because of the establishment of many machines. And if you take an example in Manchester, Bradford and Leeds, where the coal has been used in England in the houses as well as in the factories, has brought a serious health hazards for the people and health problems for them there. And this hundreds of the chimneys used to spew the smoke into the air, believing that most of the atmosphere was in dark greyish color. Many of the people used to make jokes that yes, many of the people in England were born and brought up believing that the vegetation always appears in grey color, because the smoke which falls down on the green vegetation turns them into grey. Then many people started to raise their voice, questioning the imbalances which are coming in the nature, and started to put their voices on a firm note. So initially they thought this would be right to legislate the issue in the assembly hall so that we can bring a new nuisance bill. This nuisance bill can stop the issue. But the industrialists and the steam machine owners were completely against this view, as they were a little bit influential. Money and wealth was been their main concern. They also were able to convince the officials of the government, saying that the technological advancements would definitely add for them and reduce the so-called smoke and all the effects and reduce the harm for the nature. So that's how the initial process were being turned off. So even after the technology has been added up, the smoke abatement has been made seriously from 1847 to 1853, banning the smoke in a large scale exhibit. So the Smoke Abatement Act came into force in 1847 to 1853. And also, when we move on to Indian land, Kolkata was the first place which created history. Kolkata, though being a second prime city in India, but the first city to legalize the smoke nuisance legislation. That's how it has got its special significance here. So when initially Kolkata was also having many industries and mills which were using their smoke and this coal were burning and making the entire city to become coal and dusty. So people were thinking of to file a complaint, bring it to the notice so that we can stop the coal exhibit from the factories. A new problem came when in the railway line in 1855 was brought into existence, that has brought coal from Raiganj, which is bringing extraordinary smoke into the air. That's how the new problem has arisen in 1855. But in 1863, Kolkata people were able to successfully bring the smoke nuisance bill legislation, which was actually a replica of Smoke Abatement Act of 1847 and 1853. So that's how the city which first brought the bill in relevance to the western terms was Kolkata. In 1920, the rice mills got a new problem for us in India. The rice mills started to, the rice mills which are established in Toliganj, started to burn the rice with their husk to make the husk to burn. Instead of making it in coal, they started to use the rice husk. So this resulted in a dropping of the entire dust like a rain shadow, and raining the entire dust in all the houses, factories, city roads, everywhere it has been covering the entire dust like that. So somehow in Bengal they were able to reduce the effect, but not in a larger scale. So as a common scenario in all the cities which are growing in the later part of the 19th century has been witnessing that there is an imbalance which is created by the development of the city on the nature, which would automatically result in the pollution, in the decay of the environment. That's what we have seen in the case of England, or in the case of Kolkata, or it may be in the case of Bombay. The Smoke Abatement Act in 1847 and 1853, and the replica of that was made by Kolkata, which initially was the first city to bring such a legislation. So the long history of pollution was being found in Kolkata also. So but in order to stop the pollution, they were trying to get some efforts. In the meanwhile, the railway line proposal in 1855 has brought a serious threat for the pollution again, because it has been smoking up continuously by the railway engine, but the coal which was brought from the Raiganj. Then in 1863, Kolkata successfully brought the smoke nuisance legislation. Finally, in 1920, one more problem has come up, that is the rice mills of Toliganj started to burn their rice husk, which started to drill like a rain and fall on the entire household, fields, roads, everywhere, which started to affect their health on the day-to-day basis. That's how pollution has been a common scenario in all the cities, whether it is in the lower part of the development or in the higher edge of the development. Now, in order to conclude, cities are the places where you find huge opportunities for you, and also those who would love to have freedom, that is a place where the cities have come. Though it is not neglected that we have many problems in the cities, like the pollution, the smoke, whatever it may be, but it has given a chance for many of the people, not many of the people, millions of the people, to make their dreams to come true. And these millions of people were facing all these problems, but turned their dream lands, the cities, into their homes. That's how the cities are a symbol of freedom and opportunities.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.